talk about James. With respect to the trampoline stuff, you were actually involved in throwing stuff up there while he hit it, correct?
Yes.
So you participated.
Yes.
And that incident where he broke his arm, that didn't involve getting on a ride that was designed by professional engineers, did it?
No.
Didn't involve getting on a ride where somebody didn't put on the right safety harness, did it?
No.
Now, James was a smart kid, wasn't he?
Yes.
I mean, he was the smartest of your group, wasn't he?
Yes.
3.9 grade point average.
Yes.
He got admitted to the University of Illinois.
Yes.
He was a caring kid as well, wasn't he?
Yes.
I mean, he volunteered at a domestic violence shelter once a week, right? Now, with respect to your job, you never worked the flood, did you?
No.
So everything that you talked about with respect to safety and all the things you were trained on, that was with respect to the flyer, your ride, correct?
Yes.
And on the flyer, they have the over-the-shoulder harnesses, right?
Yes.
And one of the buttons on the control panel actually releases the harness so people on the ride can't manipulate the harness while the ride is moving, correct?
Correct.
But the flood, it does not have a harness that goes over the shoulders, does it?
No.
It had those old school belt straps that go over people's laps instead of the new shoulder harness, right?
Yes.
And the paint on the boats on the flood ride was chipping off, wasn't it?
Yes.
In fact, the VP of operations for the company that owns this park described the flood as a ride that was too old, out of date, and needed to be replaced, correct?
Correct.
And they even planned to close the ride soon, didn't they?
Yes.
Now, 3 people are supposed to be working that ride, aren't they?
Yes.
That's park policy,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And there's 3 people supposed to be working the flood ride.
Yes.
But the day that James died, only 1 person was working the flood, wasn't it?
The 3 people were signed in, like locked in, and I didn't personally see just 1 person.
But only 1 person was working the ride when James died, isn't that right?
Yes.
Isn't that what Karen told you?
Yes.
Now, one of the people from the large corporate defendant told Karen to lie and say there were 3 people working that night. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Now, the person you heard that said, sit down, who was that?
It was.
I'll make this a little simpler. You have no idea who that person was, do you?
No.
And you have no idea who they were saying that to, do you?
No.
For all you know, they could have been saying that to a dog. Sit down, right?
Yes.
You just don't know.
No.
Now, at that point, you did run over to the flood right after you heard that, though, correct?
Yes.
And when you got to the crowd, you saw James laying on the ground, right?
Yes.
Was he conscious?
Yes.
What did you see?
I saw him laying in the fence of the flood, and his bones were sticking out, and his legs were in the wrong direction.
And one of his bones was sticking out of his legs.
Yes.
Was there blood?
Yes.
How much?
A lot.
And then you saw someone call 911,
Yes.
and you called security.
Yes.
Then you leaned over him, right?
Yes.
And did you say a silent prayer that he would pull through?
Yes.
And what did you tell him at that time?
Well, I told him to not talk, so he could like save his energy and like hopefully live.
So amidst all of this blood and the bones sticking out, he was actually still conscious, talking with you.
Yes.
tell him help was on the way?
Yes.
And then what happened next after security came?
They pulled me away from him, and then after I went straight to the hospital that he was gonna be sent to.
And who was at the hospital?
His parents were there, and then some of his other friends were there too.
I know this is gonna be hard, but how did you learn of James' death that night?
I saw his parents walk in, and I just knew from the looks of them that he didn't make it.
How did you react?
I screamed no, and I just broke down.
How did his other friends react?
They started crying and like holding each other.
Is that a memory you still have this day?
Yes.
You were very close with James, weren't you?
Yes.
So close, in fact, that if you have a son, you're gonna call him James, aren't you?
Yes.